Welcome to Unique People Stories. Worst dating experiences. Date went pretty well initially. He seemed a bit shy and weird but didn't get handsy. Restaurant. Movie. Walk on the beach. On the way back to our base he started making second date noises and I was up for going out again until he started going on about how he was an actual ninja. And how he'd been recruited and trained by a wandering sensei who found him in the guy's restroom in high school. And he now had 12 invisible demon ninja masters who were with him at all times and helped him battle evil or something. Then he said he could break my arm without touching me and I asked him if he was planning on trying it. No. Because I was like a delicate flower that he wanted to protect and care for. I politely but firmly let him know there would be no second date. But he decided to stalk me for a few weeks with roses and bad poetry. Then he escalated to death threats. At which point I told him if he didn't back the hell off I'd report him and get him kicked out of our school. He left me alone after that. Lost the school anyway a couple months later for unrelated reasons. I can't say any of us missed his presence. He got stationed on a sub and I later learned that he was still going on a year later about the blonde bitch who led him on and then spurned him and broke his heart forever. He got kicked out of the Navy later for forging signatures on his training documents. Seriously weird guy. A close friend of mine wanted to set me up on a blind date with a guy. Peter. Who her boyfriend worked with. You know. With the same selling line of, he's so perfect for you and you'll be a cute couple and truthfully. I was actually excited for my date and got all dolled up despite it being only lunch. I should had known it was gonna suck. I arrived on time. He arrived half an hour late and didn't even apologize for it. About 10 minutes into our get-to-know-one-another interaction, I found out why Peter was single. He believed a woman's only goal in life should be getting pregnant and raising 5 kids. Of course. Not just any woman is capable of raising his children. She had to be of good breeding and not be a slut. Women, according to Peter, were destroying this country with their opinions and careers and it was a shame that good, morally upstanding ladies were hard to find. I was so flabbergasted that I spent a large portion of my time looking for hidden cameras. This was not actually happening, was it? I truly believed I was in one of those poorly executed experiments and my friend was gonna pop out yelling surprise. I even pinched myself. Nope. It was real. Our waitress interrupted him when he started to go on a rant about the evils of promiscuity. Thank God. I think I even might had sent her some "is he crazy?" vibes with my eyes because she gave me a small grimace before leaving our table. Peter continued on with his tirade, barely letting me get a word in, changing his topics more than we change our underwear in a week. His views sickened me but I was finally done with him when he told me that Asians were only superior to black people by a small margin but both would always be submissive to white people. When he paused to take in a deep breath, I got up, quickly told him, I'm going to the bathroom before dashing off like a nut out of hell. By the bathroom entrance, I paused to see him loudly talking to a couple near our table. Both looking very uncomfortable. Without paying any attention to me. I'm not sorry to say that I sacrificed that couple and made a run for the door. The waitress even gave me a small wave goodbye. After this, I refused to be set on any more blind dates. Additional info. I love my friend but she doesn't have the best judgment in people. She and her boyfriend double dated with Peter before so she knew his views on women and people in general. I asked her why she set me up with him and her answer was along the line of, he's such a nice guy though. He's just been hurt by women before but all he need is a little TLC and before you know it, you'll just love him. Plus he makes so much money and think how nice your children will look. Because him being hot equals I turn a blind eye to everything he says. I kinda distant myself from my friend after that. I'm Asian and he's white by the way. So the jab with his problems with Asians and race were deliberate and uncalled for. What I meant by 5 kids was that he wanted to keep his woman constantly pregnant. No pause. The step-by-step program. I was in my mid-20s living in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Very hard to meet a guy with similar interests out there. So I began accepting dates with guys I really didn't connect with just to keep myself socializing. Met an OkCupid date at a Barnes & Noble. 'Cause I always met my OKC dates in a free neutral location in case the chemistry was bad. I'm pretending to peruse the Ayn Rand shelf so he will know that I am very smart when I hear this high-pitched, forced honk of a guffaw emanating from a tall, greasy-haired man with the most womanly hips I'd ever seen. He walked past me several times while pretending to be on the phone with someone, while I just continued looking around, waiting for him to introduce himself. 10 agonizing minutes later, I gave up and waved at him. He introduced himself using every 4-syllable word he could muster, with what was obviously a carefully rehearsed speech. The next several minutes were extraordinarily painful, as he just kept honking at his own jokes and reciting weirdly verbose anecdotes that made him sound like he'd ripped off several Bond villain soliloquies. To top it off, he would follow each statement with a condescending vocabulary lesson or patronizingly ask if I was following his line of thought. I ignored those inquiries. I already knew I didn't like the guy and I wasn't going to engage him by trying to outsmart him. He asked if I was hungry, because there was a local restaurant nearby that he liked. I agreed, because I was starving and I was still hoping to find some redeeming quality in this guy. He had mentioned several times online that he was a foodie and whoop loved to show me all the best hidden spots to get amazing food. Imagine my surprise when we pull into an IHOP parking lot. I didn't expect a 5-star dining experience. Just an authentic and funky hole in the wall. But whatever. We go in and I'm clearly overdressed. The hostess takes us to our booth. And as I'm about to sit, I glance back at him and witness the most comically overacted gesture I've ever seen outside of a high school improv exercise. He slaps his plump, feminine butt cheeks loudly, then digs his wallet out of his pocket, peers inside, and proceeds to wince dramatically. He looks like a cartoon character who has just realized that they actually have no money. Taking this pantomime as evidence that he has no intention to pay for my dinner, I proceed to chug at least 10 diet sodas while pretending to flip through the menu and make pleasant small talk. The waitress comes to the table for our orders and he hands her his menu and says, "You know I never order anything." I ask if she can come back in a moment, and he hisses, "I actually didn't bring any money for you to eat." I keep my eyes on the menu, like I've never been so fascinated by pancakes, because I am just so embarrassed for this guy. He then proceeds to offer to share an appetizer if I feel like buying one. I immediately tell him that I'm not hungry. AMD suggests that we leave so as not to waste the waitress' time. He leans over and honks in my face. She doesn't mind. We used to date and she loves it when I come here. At that point he starts trying to pit she and I against each other, since we've run out of things to talk about. He gets up and goes to talk to her for at least 10 minutes. Then comes back giggling to himself out loud, waiting for me to ask why he's laughing. When I don't, he says, "In case you're wondering, I'm laughing at something she said about you. Don't worry though. She's just jealous." I excused myself to the ladies. On my way back, the waitress got my attention and asked how I knew him. I told her it was an OkCupid first date. She asked if there would be a second one. I told her no. We left soon after. He went for a hug, possibly a kiss, at my car and I just ducked it and tried to laugh. The next day he asked if I had enjoyed myself and whether I'd want to do it again. I told him no. And he blew up my phone asking why. I plainly explained that it was unacceptable to take a date to a restaurant when you have no money to even go Dutch, and just rude to choose an ex's workplace as a date location. He sent back a bunch of rants about high-maintenance bitches wanting rich guys instead of intellectual nice guys. I just stopped responding. I will never forget that Shatner-esque open wallet. Cringe with horror gesture though. It was truly a sight to see. First date. I'm 22 by the way and I'd previously never been kissed. Guy I'm with asks permission for a kiss. And that's all well and good and I tell him I'd never done that before. But I give him permission to kiss me anyway. And he gives me a sweet lil peck. He asks again. And I figure it would be about the same. And nope. I'm introduced to making out and heavy petting. I don't know how to handle it so I just freeze in surprise, feeling his lips sliming his way around my mouth and his tongue trying to poke through my lips. Then he takes it a step further and jams his hand between my legs, trying to rub me through my jeans. I'm freaking out internally, confused and scared, because he's not stopping and I can't find my voice to make him stop. After a couple minutes of this and him asking if I've ever been eaten out, my 9 o'clock alarm goes off and I say it's my dad calling me to go home. He reluctantly lets me leave, but not without telling me it'd gotten him all hot and bothered and I should help him before I go. I just politely excused myself and cried on my drive back home. Not how I pictured my first kiss. A friend of mine introduced me to this girl we went to school with by doing the "Have you met Ted?" trick from How I Met Your Mother. We talk for a bit. She seems cool. We hang out a few times and I ask her if she wants to go out. She said yes. I was ecstatic since I had never asked anyone out before, let alone successfully. I figured it would be cool to go see a movie. It's the stereotypical thing to do on a date. Plus I had a car at the time. People were always happy to go off campus, so this seemed like a good idea. I just Googled the nearest movie theater, picked a movie, and we agreed to eat on campus then go to the movie. We get food, chit-chat, and I realize we're going to be late to the movie. We get in my car and I follow the GPS to the movie theater. Our school was not in a great area. You were not really safe walking around off campus. And if you went in one direction it got really bad. I assumed that the nearest movie theater was the one at the mall. In the good direction. I was wrong. This movie theater is about 15 minutes in the unsafe direction. We get to the movie theater and I think I must have entered the wrong address into my GPS. We're at a small strip mall with 3 stores in it. One end used to be video rental store but was now empty. This was in the last decade. So it must have been abandoned for a few years. The middle was an abandoned barbershop. There were loose wires and debris on the floor. And I could make out the faint outline of a large scissors-shaped decal that used to be on the window. The other end was this movie theater. We walk into the smallest movie theater lobby I've ever been at. It's got just enough room for a desk where they sell tickets and concessions. It felt like the checkout aisle at a supermarket. To give you some idea of the size. I go to pay for the tickets. But I don't have any cash and their card reader is broken. She pays for the tickets. The guy working there hands us the tickets and says Theater 3. I for sure thought this guy was kidding. There is no way they fit one theater in here. Let alone 3. I ask where Theater 3 is. And he points to the far end of the room. Down the hall. It's the 3rd door. This hallway is narrower than the lobby. Only enough room to walk single file. I hope that no movies are ending as we'd have to go back to the lobby to let them out. To make it worse, this hallway is angled downwards. Like all the theaters were dug out and then a strip mall was built on top of it. The hallway comes to a 90-degree turn to the left. We encounter 2 more turns before we get to Theater 3. I said we were running late. But we walked in right as the title of the movie was on the screen. There is one couple sitting in the front row. Nobody else is there. We sit near the middle of the theater. The movie was called Rise of the Guardians. The premise of the film is that Jack Frost needs to work with the mascots for holidays, Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, etc. to help Mother Nature. Or something like that. A quick aside, Santa is Russian in this movie. He's jacked. His biceps are named Naughty and Nice, which are tattooed on them respectively. And he carries around 2 katanas at all times for no reason. This is obviously a kid's movie. Not something that you go on a date to see. At the time I thought it was safe. But in hindsight it was not the right choice. I spend a long time deciding if I should put my arm around her. I finally decide that I should as the movie is ending. So I spent the duration of the movie probably giving off awkward vibes and not really watching the movie. I probably insisted on watching the credits. As I was an art student at the time and a professor told me it was rude to leave during the credits. We leave the theater. Go back up the labyrinthine hallway to the surface only to find that the lobby is empty. The only employee we had seen had apparently left. Additionally, there is a cop car in the parking lot with its lights on. We go outside to see a cop apprehending a black man in his 20s wearing a hoodie. The cop is parked right behind my car, blocking it in. This is especially odd as there are no other cars in the lot. It's cold, we were watching a Christmas movie. After all. And I finally get the courage to put my arm around her. We stand in the cold for way too long. Especially since the movie felt like an eternity of anxiety. Finally, the cop leaves. So we get in the car and I punch the school into my GPS. On the way back, I say something like, "This isn't how I wanted this date to go." To which she replies, "Was this a date?" At the time I was devastated. But in hindsight I think she was doing me a solid. On our actual first date we did a lot of cool, sorta hidden stuff in the city that she knew about and kissed in the rain and stuff. It was the best I've ever been on. What was your worst date?